Good morning from Mammoth Lakes, California, and welcome to the 2023 Mammoth Trail Fest. My name is Dylan Bowman, joined this morning by MK Sullivan, who will be my co-host. We also have Myel Backhausen in the studio, who will be helping out with a lot of athlete interviews with some of the elites that are going to be taking part in tomorrow's 28K. We have some heavy hitters here, some great talent, starting this morning with Dani Moreno and Alicia Vargo, who join us in studio here. Before we get to them, just a quick setup. Make sure you do subscribe to the Mountain Outpost YouTube channel. We are going to be doing lots of broadcasts, not only today, but throughout race weekend. We'll have the 28K tomorrow, 50K on Saturday, and then the Dragon's Back Ascent on Sunday. So we will be live broadcasting all three races from this channel. So we would appreciate it if you do support by subscribing. And yeah, also throughout today, make sure you follow along. Not only Alicia and Dani here this morning, but we have a long list of some of the race favorites who are going to be coming into studio. We're going to have some engaging conversations with each of them. MK, how are you feeling today? You're racing the 50K. Maybe give us a sense of, you were here at Mammoth Trail Fest last year. Yes. What are some of your fond memories, and what are you looking forward to this weekend?
I mean, honestly, the energy that Tim put into this Trail Fest last year was a ton of fun. It's why I'm back this year. I absolutely loved racing the 26K last year and the Dragon's Back Ascent. This year I'm switching it up a little bit, running the 50K instead. But yeah, I'm excited to get up to the summit and just kind of, I mean, it might be a little cold up there this year compared to last year. Last year was hot, but I'm excited either way, and I think that the racing in the 26K and the other races are going to be just lights out.
Absolutely. So to our esteemed guests here, we'll start with the local favorite here, Dani Moreno. So maybe just say a few words about welcoming some of the world's best here to your home trails, how you're feeling ahead of tomorrow's race.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be racing. I keep getting the question of, oh, do you have an advantage? But for me personally, I mean, there's a reason why these athletes are world class. To me, they can never see the course and they'll still put on a great show in competition. But I'm just most excited to have some of my friends who may not ever get the chance to watch me race anywhere else, for them to come and cheer me on. And yeah, it's pretty weird it being here in the backyard. But at the same time, I am just so excited to race. It feels almost like high school cross country in a way for me.
How are you feeling? Last time we saw each other was in Chamonix. You were coming off a sort of disappointing DNF at OCC. You weren't feeling good going into the race, sort of sick all week. Talk about how training has gone since then, how you're feeling physically, mentally leading into tomorrow's race.
Yeah, training has been almost like a 180, to be honest. I put so much mental and physical effort prepping towards OCC. It had been the first time that I had really almost like put a pedestal to a race in a year. And yeah, it did not turn out that way at all. And so when I got home, it was about recovering, but more so just recovering my mind, being excited to get out and run. And, you know, day by day, it got better and better. And honestly, it's just been like speed training, because I was prepping for 6 hours of a grind, and this race I wouldn't be surprised if the women are dipping under 210. So just trying to get that frequency back in my legs, but again, it's hard when you're at home to not be excited to race and toe the line.
What part of the course are you most excited for?
Definitely the downhill. This uphill is very tough because it's not only at altitude, but it's what we call Sierra kitty litter. I'll say that over and over again because we have a hate-love relationship for it. It gets you really strong, but it just takes it out of your legs. So imagine, running on a beach, but uphill up to 11,000 feet or so. So it's pretty rough, but the downhill also has that. And I just think it creates a very fun, fast, flowy downhills, which those are my absolute favorite.
Let's come back and talk more about the course here in a second, but we want to, of course, bring in Alicia Vargo, who's coming off an amazing 7th place finish last weekend at the Pikes Peak Ascent after a 6-year hiatus from racing. Maybe just quickly give us a sense of how that felt to come back to racing, whether or not you were surprised with the result, and how you feel about it with a week's perspective now.
I think, it was kind of the first time in my life as a runner where I was truly just starting from scratch again. I felt like I had kind of a new body or a different body, and so I was trying to relearn all the things and mix in all the ingredients into like a short training block. So I didn't really know what to expect. So it was a little bit of a relief where I'm like, okay, like I'm on the right track, you know, like at least I'm like putting some of the things together to continue to make improvement. And I think just mentally, kind of anytime you step away from something, maybe you come back to it with like a greater appreciation of like just kind of how you hold that in your life, you know, like all the stress or maybe expectations, you can kind of push them away a little bit easier and just realize like I'm doing this because I love it, and I had to like fight really hard to kind of get back to this place. So yeah, I don't know, I just felt like a lot of gratitude to be back out there, but also like, okay, like there's still something left in the legs. So yeah, I just want to continue the positive momentum and, you know, see where I can take it.
And what made you choose these 2 races, like, to come back with the Pikes Peak Ascent and Mammoth Trail Fest?
I wanted to kind of take a big swing from the get-go because I like big races. I like that feeling of not pressure, but just like kind of the pressure of being in a competition with other runners around you and not just, I don't know, like throwing yourself softballs. Like I don't know, I came from like a road and track background, and I like that adrenaline filled race situation. So I'm like, well, might as well go for it. And then also just being close to home. We have lots of little ones, and so the big travel kind of inserts big variables with our family. So I was like, okay, for these first 2 races, I want as little variables as possible. And I love running at altitude. Pikes Peak has been something that I've wanted to run since I was a teenager. I used to work at my sister's health club with Hal Kerner, and I'd come in and be like, oh, what'd you do for training today? And I'm like, oh, I like ran 6 miles. What'd you do? And very frequently he would say like, I ran up Pikes Peak, or like I ran a marathon on Pikes Peak. And I was just so blown away and intrigued by
What year was this? This is amazing.
I was in high school, so I was probably like 16 years old back in like the late 90s.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was kind of like right at the beginning of Hal's trajectory. And so yeah, I would just be like, what is this Pikes Peak? Like, I can't believe you run on a trail up a mountain for that long, like as your morning training session before coming into work. So yeah, I've always like been super fascinated with it, and I've tried to get to the start line many times, and I would like get pregnant or be like soon after pregnancy. So it was like this year I was like, okay, like I'm actually going to make it to the start line. So I hope it's the first of many Pikes Peaks. And then yeah, Mammoth, like, I mean, Tim's created something that's already incredible, and it's only the 2nd year. We haven't even completed the 2nd year, so that's pretty exciting. And then I lived in Mammoth after college. I did a lot of training camps in college, so it like holds a really special place to me. So lots of reasons.
Yeah, Dani and I have talked about this a lot on our podcast actually, but I'm really excited at the fact that you are doing these shorter races, because I think there's this misconception that as we get older or as we have kids, like, oh, it's time to move up to the long distance, but you absolutely crushed Pikes Peak Ascent.
Yeah.
So that's so cool to watch and very inspiring. I love it.
Thanks. Yeah. I mean, I'm a big fan of like sticking to like what excites you and intrigues you. So that's where I am right now.
So say a little bit more about that. You've mentioned the little ones and pregnancy, and you've also mentioned sort of like coming back after a really long hiatus and reconnecting with the joy and gratitude of it. Maybe just meditate on the journey you've been on with running and the cycles you've been through, and now sort of rediscovering it in a new chapter of your life.
Yeah, I mean, I guess kind of like when I step back, I think I've been through a few of those cycles in my life as a runner, and had to step away for other reasons before, and then, you know, obviously for like a super beautiful reason with building our family. But yeah, life has definitely like thrown us some like big perspectives recently, and I think that with a lot of moms or parents, there's this tug of war of like, you feel maybe guilty that it's like super indulgent to go out and spend hours doing something that is away from your kids. And I've struggled with that, but ultimately, like, my husband and I, like, we love this, and I think it's like important for our kids to see and feel that passion that we have for something and working hard. I grew up following my dad around from like rodeo to rodeo so he could ride 8 seconds on a bull or a bronc, and he almost never could ride for 8 seconds. You know, he'd get bucked off, he'd get hurt, he'd break a bone, and then we'd load up and we'd like go to the next one. And so I feel like I have something in me that like my dad kind of instilled of like, you know, like go for it, like do it. Like it might not have this like amazing result, or maybe it will, but like you kind of have to try, like if that's inside of you. And so I don't know, that's just maybe like something that I've carried forward in my life, and even post having children. They're still very much like little ones, but yeah.
That's beautiful. Amazing. Dani, back to you now. You're probably the most experienced American on the Golden Trail World Series over the course of the last several years, I would say. So maybe just for our viewing audience here, this is the second year in a row that the Golden Trail World Series has come for 2 races in North America. First time coming to Mammoth, but they were in Pikes Peak last year. If you want to just kind of maybe set that up for the audience about like what makes this event special as part of, you know, a greater international World Series, and what it's like having been competitive over the last several years on the Golden Trail World Series.
Yeah, I mean, when I first did the series, it was in 2021, and there was no races in the United States. And that year I felt kind of solo, but at the same time, you know, growing the family of meeting all these people from around the world, etc. But I kept kind of making snarky remarks. I'm like, you know, though, but if you had a couple races in America, there'd be a lot more of us here. More so because, you know, athletes have different levels of support and stuff like that. And me being able to work remote, that was another reason I was able to commit to the series that year. And so last year was the first year where there was 2 races in the U.S. and we played our cards and it showed, right? Like Sophia Lockley, Allie McLaughlin, myself. This year now Rachel Drake is back on the series. She had dabbled in it in 2020, 2021. So I just think it's really cool because it gives a chance to athletes who don't have all the levels of support that some athletes may, to compete against the world's best and to see if they do crave that competition, which like I shared with Alicia, you could see where you kind of land and stuff like that, and it gives them an opportunity to hopefully gain some opportunities, right? So if you place in the top 10 in one of these races, like is a very great result, right? Top 10 in the world. You can start to assume that you could probably place in the top 10 in most worldwide races. Maybe it's a little confidence boost and then your name's out there, etc. So yeah, I just think it's awesome giving that access to other parts of the world. And, you know, hopefully maybe the series starts to split up a little more. I understand why, you know, they're mostly in Europe right now. But this is, me and MK talk about it all the time on the podcast, like this is the most premier sub-ultra series in our opinion. There's always room for improvement as there is across all the series. So for it to be, you know, in Colorado and California too, I think that's pretty special since there's large contingencies of trail runners in both those areas. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I don't have one.
So maybe going back to what we were talking about with the course, when the 3 of us did our pre-Sierra Knoll conversation, we were commenting about how Sierra Knoll is like the ultimate mix between speed and steep, right? Fast terrain and steep, slow terrain. And it feels to me like Mammoth is sort of similar in that respect. Like there's long stretches where people who come from the track and road background, people like Alicia, who have leg speed naturally built up over decades, might have an advantage. And then obviously you go up the Dragon's Back, that's very steep, you know, the iconic climb here in Mammoth Lakes. So maybe go a little bit deeper on the course, what our viewers can expect and who it might favor in terms of the athletes who will take the line tomorrow.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, you know, I don't envy Tim Tollefson for having to come up with a course in Mammoth. I mean, if you've ever been here, we have a whole smorgasbord of trails that are super buffed out, which we will see on this course, some that don't even look like trails. They're little deer trails, very technical to not technical. And yeah, I would say this definitely is on that fast side, which I also potentially wasn't expecting, but you do have to keep it on the mountain because in America we have to deal with a lot of like land permits and forests and getting all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I would definitely say people who could run fast downhill, this is kind of their course. The uphill, like there is time to be gained there, but I don't know if it's quite enough time to out kick a downhiller before you get to the downhill part. So yeah, it's going to be fun. And even like the first 4 to 5 miles, I think people will be surprised by how fast we're going to be able to run, because while we are at altitude, it's just like, it's kind of runnable. I know we use that phrase a lot, but it is, and it's kind of like roller coastery. So I would expect someone like Remy, maybe Patrick Kipniego, Philemon, Kiriago, men who have a lot of leg speed. Eli Hemming is another one. I wouldn't be surprised if they go under 2 hours. But you know, our very own Max Keene can very well take off, probably like catch a lot of people on the downhill if he's feeling very strong, assuming he is. And
Max is sitting just over here. He's one of our next guests.
And then the same with the women as well. Like people like Judith Wider are known for their downhill. So if she's in the hunt, you know, at the top, she will most likely have a good race. Yeah.
And just for perspective, the Dragon's Back starts at almost 9,000 feet and ends above 11,000. So it's very steep, but it's also very high. So it's sandy, you're exhausted because you've been running pretty fast for a while, and it's just like, yeah, the altitude will get to people.
Terrific. So we'll let you guys go, but maybe quickly just share goals, expectations, hopes, and dreams for tomorrow, and then go put your feet up.
Pour your hearts out.
You want to go first?
Sure. Yeah, I just kind of want to continue that positive momentum that I feel like I've got like a little bit of traction with, and yeah, just keep working on competing better. Like there's a lot of things, I think you have to race to learn how to race. And so, yeah, just keep learning those skills, and I really hope that I'm kind of like eyeing like cracking that top 10 tomorrow, top 10-ish. I'd be super excited about. Yeah.
Amazing. Dani, any final words, goals?
Yeah, I mean, just kind of going off of what Alicia kind of was touching upon, running with gratitude. I feel like I got a good shake up at OCC, and I keep saying I'm so excited because I am. Like I just want to race. And you know, I feel that I may be more typically known for being conservative, but I kind of am Hail Marying the rest of this year. So you may see me a little bit more aggressive than I normally am, just because I just want to let it all out. You know, I put a lot of hard work into OCC, and that work's got to go somewhere else. Yes. So yeah, just gracious I can get on the line tomorrow and actually have food in my system. Yeah. and really grateful it's here at home. So awesome. I'll see what I can do.
Well, good luck to you both. Thanks for joining MK and I this morning. Hope you have a restful rest of your day, and good luck tomorrow.
Awesome. Thank you.
Stick around, everybody. Actually, what you're going to need to do is close out and go to the next stream. We're going to have Max King and Chris Vargo here as our guests. So go back to the Mountain Outpost YouTube channel, click through to the next stream, and we'll see you in a few minutes.